Have you ever wondered how superstars like The Rock or LeBron James or Eva Longoria reach such stratospheric levels of success in their careers? Because they definitely don't do it alone. Those three names, amongst many, many others, are some that have benefited from the expertise and genius of my next guest, master talent agent Brad Slater. In this episode, I talked to Brad about fame, some of the misconceptions of fame, and of course, the hustler mindset. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Here's Brad Slater. Sign the contract. Mr. Slater, thanks for coming on, sir. I really appreciate it.
Oh man, I've been looking forward to this all week. I couldn't wait. It's about time. I'm happy. I'm happy to be here. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. And yeah, man, here we are. Let's do it.
So you've not only been a dear friend of mine over the years, but you've also been, I would say, somebody that I've always looked toward, observing the way you're maneuvering and as sort of a mentor in a certain way, because you being one of the higher level performers that I know. And I think also because we have a very relatable upbringing, growing up in LA, in the social scene, playing baseball and whatnot. Take us a little bit back to your childhood and how you grew up.
Well, first of all, I so appreciate the kind words. Let's start there, because you've been a dear friend of mine now going on like not 10, 11 years or something like that. But I always had heard the lore of Chris Light as a young kid growing up on this side of the hill in LA as a baseball player. Everyone knew you do not want to go out to Encino Little League and have to face Chris Light. So baseball is definitely, a through line. It's funny. Baseball for me is the through line to my entire career. I mean, I thought I was going to get to play baseball forever, like all of us, I think, did, at least up until a certain point. And then reality hits you in the face. You realize you really weren't as good as you thought. And there's a lot of kids out there that are so much better. I went off to college and went to the University of Arizona. I will never forget. I think it was like the first 2 or 3 weeks of school. I was with one of my best friends at the time, still a dear friend of mine today, named Garrett Feldman. And we had the opportunity to go see a movie for free on campus. And you remember those days, college kid, we had no money. We was like, it's free. We're gone. We're out of here. Let's go. And the movie was The Last of the Mohicans, that starred Daniel Day-Lewis, directed by, legend Michael Mann. And I knew it was about, American Indians and Native American Indians. That was basically all I knew about the movie. And I just saw the film, took about 10 steps out of the theater, grabbed Garrett by the wrist. I'm like, my man, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to be in the movie business one day, because if I wasn't on a baseball field, running around or football field with my friends, I was in movie theaters, or sitting around watching TV. That was my second love. And so, it was a long time ago. As you remember those days, we didn't have email. You didn't text message. There was no internet. 1993, that's when I was a freshman at college. And, you really had to find your way. And even though I grew up in Los Angeles like you did, I didn't have any connections at all really to the business. Tangentially, my father was in the marketing side of the business, but there was no version of him being able to call somebody at an agency or management company and say, hey, can my kid come get a job in the mailroom, And so really had to hustle and really grind and find ways to get in people's inboxes, which at the time in my head was using fax machines, and getting people's phone numbers, personal fax lines, because when people would go to bed at night, they would check their faxes the same way we check our email and text before you go to bed. That was it back then. And so I would get phone numbers and send resumes and pray for a response.
How are you sourcing fax machine numbers?
Bribing assistants here and there, sending little gifts here and there, whatever it took. It was just the only way. Nowadays, you could get in somebody's, if you don't have to try that hard to get somebody's email now. I mean, I get found all the time. And if you write something convincing enough to me, I'm going to write you back every time, Of course, you can't get everybody back, but I get some great letters that really pique my interest. And I met some great young people that way. But anyway, fast forward, I was able to get some really, really high level internships that just made me know that I had to be in the business. I loved it. And I guess the one that really kind of solidified everything for me was at Mandalay Entertainment, when Peter Guber was really one of the greatest movie producers and really just businessmen of all time. He just finished running Sony Pictures, and he started Mandalay Entertainment. And I was lucky enough to get an internship there. And it was totally administrative, but I didn't care. I was in rooms all day long, Xeroxing movie scripts because there was no such thing as PDFs back then. You literally had to copy the scripts and go distribute them. And they would give me all these documents to shred, to put in a paper shredder. So I just figured these must be important. So before I stuck them in the shredder, I would just read everything. And I got an education that way. You know, I was learning about things that I think I read about the first IMAX movie theater, like the plans for the first IMAX movie theater back in 1993. I don't remember when they, became the real deal, but I knew about it way before anybody else, I think. And it was just invaluable. I loved being on a movie studio lot and seeing the sound stages. I would literally walk from where I parked my car in the morning to where my actual office was. And I think I was on the original yellow brick road from Wizard of Oz. It was like covered with asphalt now, and it was like a walkway. But I was like, this is amazing. This is history. And I was just bit by the bug, and I just had to keep finding my way. And I did. And then going back to baseball, by the time I graduated, my Pony League baseball coach when I was 14 and 15, his name was Bill Barnett. At the time, wasn't even in the movie business. He was an entrepreneur. I think he was like in real estate and doing some radio stuff. And by the time I graduated, he had a production company. And I called him and I was like, I heard you're making movies now. He said, yeah, I am. And he offered me a job to sell the movies that he was making internationally. So I would get to travel overseas a couple times a year and go sell these movies to countries all over the world. And I was making deals with people who were like 25 years older than me, speaking totally different languages. I was meeting people from everywhere, really, like literally like Russia, China, Italy, Venezuela, Australia, Brazil. It was just awesome.
And you're doing this like in the summer of college?
No, that was my first job when I finally graduated. That was like my first get. I'm trying to not talk too long here, even though I got all the time you need here. But it was just invaluable. You know, I was seeing the world. I was learning how movies were being made before, making money before you even shot a frame because you were selling them internationally. And I did that for about a year and a half. And I really enjoyed it, but it wasn't like the hub of the business that I appreciated being on that studio lot. So I knew I had to get in a management company or an agency. And I had a couple criteria that I would only work at the best company in the business. I was only going to work for the boss. And I just felt that between the internships and that job, I just had to do it that way. And things worked out. And I got the opportunity to work at a company called Addis Wexler. At the time, the boss was Keith Addis. He was the one looking for an assistant, so it checked my two boxes. I worked for him for about a little under a year, I think. A manager there by the name of Rick and Julie Yorn, his sister-in-law, decided to start a new company called AMG with Michael Ovitz. Michael, was kind of a revolutionary agent who founded CAA, came back into the business and formed this new company, and they invited me to go with them. And I took that job. I worked for Rick for about a year or so, a little over a year, and really learned how to represent talent and what it meant to nurture a career and what it meant to, most importantly, I think, learn that you could be really successful in this business, but still be a good person because he's the best and he's still a dear friend of mine and mentor to this day. We talk all the time. And that was like really important to me. Like I just didn't want to fall into any stereotypes, whether they existed or not. I felt like I could make it. But to do that, I still wanted to try to be a good dude, and then I did that for about 3 years, got promoted as a manager, had my own clients. And then the companies weren't doing that great. And they had to let go of a ton of people. I was definitely hanging on for dear life until the end. I was one of the last to have to let go, actually. And I made the leap to agent, and that was 20 years ago. Almost to the day. Well, July 7th was 20 years at William Morris. And it's a decision I made and never looked back. It was the right one. And I've just had an absolute blast the entire time.
So what were you making back in those early days? What kind of money was it?
It was not pretty, and it hasn't changed much, to be honest. I was making about $350 a week and somewhere in there, not much more than that at all. Maybe you catch a little bit of overtime.
Yeah.
But honestly, it didn't even matter. I would have done it for free. It was so hard to get in and make it. And if you believe you were going to make it, you just got to go. And
that's why I asked. I mean, do you find the kids are still willing to hustle and get after it, or do they kind of want it all in this new sort of digital age? Do they sort of want the money right up front and want to be already in the mix?
Well, there's definitely. I mean, listen. I mean, there's some incredible young people that I'm around, and I rely on them so much for the information that I get and what matters and what's cool and what culture is. So, I want to be very clear about that. And I think as we all get older, everybody's been saying our parents said it about us. We're going to say it about our kids. Nobody works as hard as us. Times do change, and there's definitely a version, I think, that young people do just want it now, but they also, like, so many of these kids, they've had their own businesses when they're in high school.
Right.
They're in college making money, more money than a lot of kids who, first job out of college. I've seen it.
Yep.
And so because of that, that's where it comes from. I don't think it's laziness. I don't even know if it's entitlement. I just think it's the world's really different. And like I said, these kids have been out making money since they were 16 years old sometimes. So I think that that's where that comes from. And it's really interesting, and you definitely have to work through it. There's no, like, you can't leapfrog any of the steps. You still got to go through it. Like, there's no handouts. No one's saying, oh, you don't have to do this. You're so amazing. Go run the company now. That's not happening. So whether you like it or not, you still got to go through, you got to take every rung on the ladder.
Right. So kind of keep us going with the timeline and the roadmap to sort of present day with some of the breakthroughs and some of the setbacks that you had that maybe made you question and doubt what you were doing versus some of the stuff that you're like, oh, I want to pursue this, and it kind of took you to the next level.
Yeah, I think the setbacks are the most important thing. I mean, I hated the setbacks, but I think I'm most grateful for them because it really let me know if I'm down or not. Like, if I really am who I think I am, if I can get through this, then I know that I can keep going. And I've had so many setbacks. I think the one that's the most memorable is, as I was saying, like, when I had made it, like, I was done being an assistant. I had gotten promoted. I got my stripes. I'm starting to get to represent a couple of clients of my own now. The hard part's actually over, and I saw the future. Like, I kind of knew what the entire rest of my life was going to be like if I just kept on that track. And then that company, was going through its own issues, and people were being let go. And I was like, oh my God, well, no way I'm going to be let go. I'm all right. I'm young. They're, I'm the future, whatever. And lo and behold, I was let go.
Shit.
And I was like, I just couldn't believe it, Chris. I couldn't believe it. And I'll never forget, I was at dinner at this sushi spot in West Los Angeles called Hamasaku. And I got the call that I was gone. I was with a friend of mine at the time. And I remember walking out of the restaurant in the middle of dinner, standing in the parking lot, calling my boss, who let me go, who was literally the same guy I was talking about earlier, who taught me how to be a great, you can be successful and be a good person. And it wasn't his fault. Like, I didn't do anything wrong, and he didn't do it. Like, the company wasn't working. Just wasn't as according to plan. He had to let me go. And I called him from my phone. I was crying, dude, in the middle of a parking lot, thinking, I don't even know where to go from here.
Yeah.
And so, then I composed myself and got it together, and figured that I had to, figure out what was going to be next, and reach out to the people that I met along the way, and tell people I was available and that I was on the market. And luckily, I made the choice against a lot of people's advice, which was another cool thing. Everybody told me not to go to William Morris back then, 2003. Don't go to William Morris. They're this, they're that. Go anywhere else. And I was like, the fact that they're all telling me not to go there, I'm running right in. And I did. And that company has given me, to this day, everything that I need to do my job and be great. And so, yeah, I went totally against the grain back then. And so those two moments were huge. Getting your heart broken and then making decisions that everybody's telling you not to do. Those were big time for me.
Any other breakthroughs that kind of just like just put you through with a trajectory going straight up?
No, because I mean, I've had so much luck and so many great moments, but I've also been taught to have a really short memory.
Right.
Like, I can't celebrate the wins too long, and I can't get too down about the losses for too long. And sometimes that sucks, because you should celebrate the wins and, like, take a moment to breathe. And I do. I'm not saying, like, I don't get any thrill out of a victory, but look, I've had some great things happen. I think I was 31 years old, and I had 2 Oscar winners on the same night, with Forrest Whitaker and Jennifer Hudson at the time. That was crazy. You can go an entire career and have a wonderful career in this business and never have a client win an Academy Award or even be nominated, you can still, it's amazing. You know, it's like Charles Barkley not winning a championship. He was still the man and is still the man, right? So it could be kind of like that. And so that happened, and that opened up a lot of doors. I mean, I've had some, they weren't really monument like events that took place. Like for me, honestly, my journey with Ronda Rousey is one of the most gratifying things that's ever happened to me in this business, because I really learned that the rules are different for women. What she did when she came into the sport of all men and started that women's division and was just unapologetic. And you know her, I mean, you spent time with her,
Yeah.
of what her goal was and what she was going to set out to do. It was really never about her. It was actually about building a women's division and leaving it, to quote her, in a better place than it was when she left or when she started, right? But man, you see people like Serena Williams, like, have a problem with a line judge, and she says what she says, and she like can get suspended for it. Or Ronda doesn't touch gloves, you know, with somebody, and she's the worst person in the world, or whatever. But then you would see men do whatever their version of that, and they'd get applauded for it, and people thought it was cool. It just didn't. It was unbelievable, and the doors that she opened for me, and the way she opened up my eyes to everything, and the sacrifice I think that she made for having to be first. And obviously, there've been so many people throughout sports in the world who have been first and made unbelievable sacrifices so that other people could do it. But for me, that was, I mean, just incredible.
Talk a little bit more about her and the ceiling that she actually broke through. And pretty much every woman who's competing in MMA now owes it to Ronda and what they're getting right now. I mean, and I did spend some time. I think I met you right around the time that you were representing her. And it was before she got into MMA. She was coming to a local gym in Sherman Oaks and kind of just training. Talk a little bit more about what she had to kind of go through to climb that ladder.
Well, I think at the time she was really starting and made the decision that she was going to go for it. I think getting men to train her for so long, like she couldn't get a man to like completely buy in. There were men along the way, I think, that were supportive and things like that, but like to really be like, okay, I'm with you, you know, let's go. And then it ultimately ended up becoming Edmund, and they went on that, you know, on that run. And so let's start there, you know, and then she goes on to, you know, come in and go on that run of win. But she was, you know, the baddest, you know, woman around, and anything that she would say would go one of two ways, either love or extreme hate. And, you know, and she didn't mind putting it all on her back to carry it and get the eyeballs to come and see these talented women fight their asses off. It was amazing to see her go. I can't remember how many fights in a row she won. She got to like 9-0 before, you know, she lost. But like, and the same people that built her up, I mean, literally, just immediately go to tear her down with no in between, no nothing. You know, so I think that was hard. It was probably harder for me to watch, but all that stuff. You know, but that's the world, and that's sports, and that's what, you know, that's what we see. They love to build you up and then bring you down, and that's all that's been going on. It wasn't isolated to her. That's everybody.
I forgot. Was that your entry point into MMA?
She was definitely my entry point. You know, I saw her on an episode of The Ultimate Fighter. She was a guest. She did a walkthrough because her friend Manny Gambarian was one of the competitors. And I remember seeing her on TV, and I called my wife Kara over, and I was like, look at this woman. Like, everyone is giving her so much respect, and like, what a badass with the hair and the leather jacket and the boots. And who is that? And I'm Ronda Rousey. Then I remembered her name as, you know, local girl from here. We were so proud because she won the bronze medal, you know, in the Olympics. I was like, wow.
By the way, shout out to all the Armenians over in Glendale. All those guys. They got a group that doesn't get enough credit. I think they got some absolute savages that come out of Glendale, and they're a tight group.
Oh,
but yeah,
they are the tightest group, and I love those guys and girls, and like, they embraced me so much when I came into her life, and that very easily could have been like, agent, get out of here. And to this day, we're all so close, and I'm pulling for all those guys every time they fight. And yeah, big shout out for sure. And the greatest restaurant ever, by the way. Rafi's out there in Glendale. I know you've been, no joke. Unbelievable.
So good. And then I would assume that brought you over to the jiu-jitsu mats, right? Kind of being in that world with Ronda, and then finding jiu-jitsu.
100%.
Yeah,
Ronda. I had been doing Muay Thai for quite some time at that point. I'd be training, and I'd look around the gym, and I'd see all these dudes doing jiu-jitsu, and I'm like, God, I really want to do that. But I've had this horrible dislocated the worst. I think I had the worst shoulder condition in the history of shoulders for so long. And I'm like, I'm never going to be able to do that. My shoulder will pop right out. And then I said the same thing to her. And she's like, no, no, no. You should train with my guys. And that was Henry and Hiron. And I was like, well, that would be amazing. Great. And then I did it. And then that's how you and I linked up. And, you know, you took me all the way through. But yeah, that was my first intro to jiu-jitsu. And that has been a life-changing thing for me. Whether I'm consistently on the mats or off, jiu-jitsu is just in my brain. I feel like it's in my DNA every single day. So much of that I owe to you.
What has jiu-jitsu done for you? How has it served you well in what you do on a daily basis? What have been sort of the effects that have permeated into your everyday life for you?
I think the great metaphor for me is just the way it relates to life, and that learning how to be comfortable even when you're so uncomfortable. You know, there's just nothing like somebody having you in a headlock or some kind of choke, but you actually know it's not going to end you and it's not going to put you out, and you can actually sit in that position for a bit until somebody gets tired and moves, and you end up ultimately getting out of it. Like once you know the difference between like, well, you are going to get choked out or not. And that's like life. I've been in headlocks in life so many times. You've been around for a lot of them. You know, I used to love when you and I would roll for like an hour, and then it was our conversations afterward.
Yeah.
You know, that were the things that meant the most. And so just knowing that, yes, sometimes life has you in a headlock or a choke too, but nothing's really forever, and that something's going to move in the same way it did on the mats. There's going to be a ray of light. There's going to be a sparkle somewhere. You're going to see it, and you're going to wiggle your way out of it, and then things are going to start opening up. And I think I went through one of my toughest times in my whole life when I was training with you.
Yeah.
And we would talk about it all the time. I vividly remember coming into the academy, putting on my gi, tying my belt, looking at you and being like, yeah, I'm out of here. I don't feel it. I'm not feeling it today, and leaving. But then I remember coming back, you know, and that was like so powerful to me. Yeah, do you remember that?
Of course. And I mean, that's kind of one of the next questions I wanted to ask you, is just that I know what you do is stressful. We've been through some of those times together, but it always struck me when I would see you in stressful moments that you were very, it's almost like they were happening, but they almost dialed you in more. You became proactive toward that stress, and you come in, you talk about it. And I was just wondering, how do you deal with being in such a high level, stressful job?
Look, I think every job, everyone has stress. Every job. I don't think that I could possibly have more stress in what I do than most people. Like, I mean, come on. Doctors have stress. Soldiers have stress. Police officers, firemen, name it. Go down the list. You know, I'm fortunate. I get to be in the entertainment business. But yes, it is a stressful job, no doubt. And your career, and just like anything else, and your kind of everything is on the line. Yet you have to try to be successful. How do I deal with it? I've learned so many different ways throughout the years. You really have to work on yourself.
Yeah, you
have to, and you have to be able to communicate, and you have to be able to go to people that you trust to ask for help. With anything. I don't just mean in like, I'm really struggling here, but like, what do you think about this? How would you deal with it? Like, I think I know, but this is what I'm going to do. Do you think this sounds right? Get other people's advice that you trust. And you've got to have that tight five, I like to call it, those 5 people that you can call on at any time. Like me and you, we don't have to talk every single day to know that we have a bond, and I've definitely got a lot of people in my life that are the same way. And I think that that's so important. But I've really learned over the course of the last, however many years to work on myself, to do things like cold plunging that you and I have talked about, like using saunas. I don't know how many people have learned about Gary Brecka over the internet with 10X that Dana White, has made so popular.
I'm just learning about. He's incredible. What an incredible guy.
An incredible human being that I've been fortunate enough to know for the last 5 months, and has really changed so many things. So I guess the long way around answering your question is you have to work on yourself. You cannot just, I don't believe, just wake up, go to bed, and hope that everything's gonna fall into place. And by the way, if you can, amazing, great for you. But you have to work on yourself, and that's your well-being, and that's your mental well-being as well. They're the same but different. And it's not perfect all the time, but I've found a lot of ways for me that have helped me with that so much.
I love that idea of the tight five. And I think you and I are both the same in that we're relationship people and we always work to nurture relationships. And I think that's something, a lot of people think that they can be an island and go at things alone. But talk a little bit about how you develop relationships and nurture relationships and how that served you in what you do.
I've just always loved to help people. I get like a huge just boost when I can help anybody. And I would always have people around me who just would be like, you did that for so and so. What are you getting out of it? And I go, I'm not getting anything out of it. I'm not getting anything. Like it'll come back however it comes back in the universe, and it does. Somebody told me a long time ago, great line, if you can be a good giver, you're going to be even a better getter. And I was like, that's simple, man. I mean, you don't have to think too hard about that. And I kind of took that and ran with it. And I definitely get a lot more pleasure out of helping one of my colleagues if I can help one of their clients get a job on a movie or TV show or something else. And I can even get when I do it for myself. I love that. Relationships are important. Deal making is important. I never want to feel like I've like broken anybody on the other end of a deal, mainly because you always got to come back to them at some point. You're going to see them again for sure. And people don't forget. And I just always felt like there's enough to go around. And that just goes back to trying to be a good person. But long-term relationships are so important. There's people now that I deal with on extremely high levels that I was dealing with when I was 25 years old and we were all assistants together. Like we were all making that 350 or whatever it was then. And we've been tight all the way through. Those are long-term relationships that's how I get through my days. And so yeah, important relationships are so crucial to, I think, maintaining any kind of real success. And it's a lot more fun doing business with people that you like, that are your friends, that you can keep going back to, and they can keep coming to you again and again and again. You don't have to look too far. You know who the person is that you got to call at this company and the person at that company and or that brand or whatever it is. So, yeah, I've definitely dined down on that for a long time and hold those kind of relationships really, really close.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And doing what you do also, are you somebody who's more intuitively driven? Are you a big strategizer? Are you getting down there and just really blueprinting everything out? Or are you kind of just going with how you feel? Are you a gut instinct kind of guy?
I definitely think I'm more of a gut instinct guy. I'm not to say I'm not a believer in strategy. Of course, there's a plan, but I'm a big believer in like what Bruce Lee said and being like water, and that was obviously towards martial arts, but also life. Water's coming down a river and it hits a boulder somewhere. It doesn't stop and go, you know what? I think I'm gonna go around the rock this way. It just goes where it goes. And I think that the world moves so quickly now. I mean, it's just so quick that like you can have a strategy, and then by the time you're ready to put it into play and implement it, everything's changed. And then that strategy doesn't work anymore because you know what? They're not buying that anymore, or this isn't cool, or that's happening, or they're not spending that kind of money on this. So you got to go. I lean heavily on my gut. And I think there's certain things that you cannot be taught. Obviously, you can't teach yourself to have a great gut instinct. You either have one or you don't. I'd like to believe I've been right more than I was wrong. I don't have it, tallied up anywhere, but it feels like it. And I've definitely missed on some things too, of course. But yes, I feel like instincts important, and I like to stay up. That's why I use those young kids so much, and my own kids. About what's cool out there, and who's paying attention to what, and what movies they're working and why, and who's going to what theaters actually, or who's watching it on stream, all that kind of stuff, because you got to keep up on it.
What are also some of the things that, dealing with famous people, quote unquote, what are some of the things that people get wrong about those people? There's so many misconceptions about people that are in the limelight, that they're fake or they're disingenuous. What are some things that people actually get wrong about people that are in the limelight?
I think that I think that people don't realize sometimes how hard these people actually work, and the time and the energy and the thought.
Everyone thinks it happens overnight, right?
Yeah, it was definitely that, for sure. And these days with, TikTok and Instagram and all these things, like you can get pretty famous overnight. But like, I think the people that you're really referring to, they work so hard. And I've been fortunate enough to be around some of those that put in somehow more than 24 hours. They get more than 24 hours in a day somehow. I don't know where it comes from, but they really figured it out, that just absolute commitment to winning, and giving back and being there for their fans and speaking directly to their fans, realizing that it is the fans that got them to where they are. Of course, it's their talent, but it's the fans who are embracing it and want to see them. So there's that for sure. And then the actual belief that when they stare in the mirror, they're seeing exactly who they think they are, if that makes sense. Because I think there's a lot of people in the world that look in the mirror and see somebody else. And sometimes they don't like what they see, but I think some of the greats, they know who they are. It's reflecting back at them. They are who they think they are. And then it just goes, to another place. The hardest thing is just being okay with it and not reading all the comments and not reading all the articles, because they just know who they are. One of the great quote things that Dana White has ever said to me, I asked him a question, about I don't even remember what it was regarding at the time, but he just said, and he said it many times, I know who I am. And if you know who you are, it makes life a lot easier to live and not worry so much about what every single other person is thinking around the corner and how they feel about you and what they're saying, when the door is shut and all that. If you know who you are, then you are at a major, major advantage. And that takes work. It's not easy. I love pleasing people. I hope that, I'm liked. I care about it all the time. But when you get to a point where those close to you really know who you are, then, that helps out a lot.
And what are some of the, I want to get a little more granular with that. What are some of like the practices that you might be able to speak on that these people actually employ? Are they working out all the time? Are they eating right? Are they surrounding themselves with great people? All of the above? Are they philanthropic? Like, what are some of the real traits that you see as a common thread through a lot of those high level performers?
All of those things, actually, that, super astute of you. I think all of those things get factored in. I've watched some of the, some really, really successful, not just stars, but like people in the world have unbelievable people around them who help them run their businesses. Like, and the difference. When you have a Dwayne Johnson who's got a Dany Garcia, or a LeBron James who's got a Maverick Carter, who are people that not just take the interests of the people that are their business partners, but really listen to the people that they've employed around them to help make the moves that they make in careers. It's so important. It's that one person. Everybody's got that person. And sometimes that person doesn't have their best interest. And sometimes, but boy, when the person's got that person and that team that really functions, it is absolutely, it's just totally priceless. And you just can't put a price tag on it. Philanthropy, of course, that's huge, being able to give back to what you've been able to receive. And that's a gigantic, gigantic thing. You can never do enough. Some people are super public about their philanthropy and do amazing things. And some people are super private about their philanthropy and do unbelievable things. And that's a choice. Both are beautiful, But yeah, I think all of those things get factored in. Of course, same like we were talking about. I think you mentioned, health, wellness, taking the time to really, work out, be active, try to eat right, and take care of your just mental health. Mental health is becoming the most important thing that you hear as a common thread every step I take now. It's just everywhere. How can I improve my mental health, my mental well-being? Because there's just so much going around. It's not even just about a job. It's just life. Turn on the news any day, and it's being thrown at you everywhere you go. And I think, and really famous people too, the energy that comes at them, it's a lot. It's draining. So they have to find ways to, of course, embrace it and love it, but also like find time to rest too, and recharge and be with your family and your loved ones, your husbands and wives and boyfriends and girlfriends, kids, all that stuff.
With stardom these days, it's completely different than obviously when we grew up. Social media, YouTube, TikTok. What is attracting you to clients these days? What constitutes star power? And what's changed since you got in the game?
I think for me, the thing that attracts me most is that I have to be a fan first. That's it. Like, I can't, how can I possibly go out there and try to sell a person for all of that they're capable of? Like, I'm not like genuinely a fan. If you don't think I was not watching The Rock come up, in the WWE, and like, I'll never forget where I saw him for the first time actually wrestle and just be mesmerized. And then lucky enough, however many years later, 15 years later, to get to be his agent, I was a total like fan, you know, if you're not a fan, it makes it really hard to be genuine and go out there and speak about something passionately. I know that my I may not be great at a lot of things in the business, but I know that I have a lot of passion, and I know that if I represent somebody, they can rest assured that I'm going to talk about them with so much excitement every single chance I get. But to do that, you can't fake it. You have to be all in. So to me, and that's why I love my job. Like, I actually get to work with people that I'm a genuine fan of. That's a gift to me, and so that's the number one thing. If you believe in somebody, you see that talent and know that they're able to go out and accomplish all the things that they want to do. That's my job, is to make sure I can carry all of those wishes out for them and put them, into any business that they want to see, whether it's acting, in movies and TV, or producing, or having their own tequila company or their cookware line, or all of those things. Yeah, and that's really what it's all about.
Is business personal for you, or do you kind of keep it separate?
It's personal.
It's always personal.
Well, it's personal, not as it relates to me. It's personal as it relates to the people I represent. I have like a huge chip on my shoulder for them. I love for them to win. I love when it's between my client and somebody else's somewhere else, and I know there's like, it's between the two, and my client gets it. Yeah, it's really personal. I love when there's when things start off as, yeah, I'm not really interested in them, thanks, or they're all right, but like, they're not right for this, and then they end up getting the part at the end of the day, or the endorsement or whatever it is. Yes, it is extremely personal. It always has been for me. I've tried to take it less and less, but I also think, like, if I ever lose that, then I got to go. Then I got to go coach high school baseball somewhere, and I'll go take it personal on a baseball field, and, for whatever team I'm coaching, because yeah, everyone's got their thing. And I definitely have a tendency to wear it on my sleeves, but I think that that's one of the reasons why I'm fortunate enough to get to represent the people that I do.
Yeah. And I guess what I'm getting at is, for people that might be interested in business, they see somebody like you, who's obviously one of the nicest guys ever, but there's a side, right? There has to be a side where you crack the hammer, you crack the whip, bring down the hammer on people. When does that happen? And, how do you sort of balance that out?
I was talking to somebody about this the other day. I think one of my younger colleagues, ran into on the street. We were walking to lunch somewhere. I think jiu-jitsu helped me a lot with this. When I was younger, I would lose it a lot. And even if it worked, I think looking back, was a huge sign of my own insecurity.
Did it burn bridges?
No, I don't. No. If a bridge ever got burned, it was definitely because I didn't need it to be rebuilt.
Mm-hmm.
But no, it wasn't like that. But like getting, just maybe flying off the handle a little bit, getting, way up here. It might have worked then, but it doesn't work now. I'm 49 years old. I've been aging for 20 years, and going back, like jiu-jitsu, you remember, like, you would tell me all the time, stop trying to submit me. You don't have to just go for the submission every second. Just be here, slow me down, lay on me, tire me out. Same thing. Now there's ways to be extremely calm in the pocket and achieve the same result. While, yeah, it's easy to take things personally and all that stuff. It definitely, now looking back, it actually appears, I feel like it was an insecurity rather than a weapon in the bag.
What else you get into these days? I know you got Irv's Burgers.
Yeah, the burger spot. I've been just growing up in LA like you. I was always into the food scene and just loved so much the restaurants that, like, we grew up on. the little places that not everybody knew about, and Mexican food, the Chinese food, the burger spots, all that, the pizza places. And so I messed around throughout the years, in some of them. And then I got approached by my partner, Lawrence Longo, who brought Prince Street Pizza from New York to LA. And he's just the greatest dude. And he's like a really, really great, just genius concept marketer. And during the pandemic, we were sitting around. And he's like, man, you remember Irv's Burgers? I was like, yeah, I remember Irv's Burgers, like in West Hollywood. And he said, it's available. The family, has had it forever, but they're not going to do it anymore. He's like, I have an opportunity. You want to do this with me? And I was like, right in the middle of the pandemic, I was like, yeah, I'm in. I love it. Let's go. And so he I can't even take the credit, rebranded the whole thing, redid the menu, and opened the first one up in West Hollywood and Santa Monica and Crescent Heights. And it's done really, really well. And we opened up another one at Olympic and La Brea, right? Kind of mid-city, and then just opened up in Malibu. And then where else are we going? Well, we're opening up in Vegas, actually, at the top of December in the new Durango Hotel that's about to open. So, but yeah, so the burgers are great, man. I can't tell a lie. I've been doing the 10X thing, so all my burgers are protein wrapped now, no buns. I can't. I'm not having the buns, but people love it, and it's been great. It's fun too. It's a nice side hustle for me.
I cannot wait. Well, B, I really appreciate you, brother. Thanks for taking the time. It was great to talk to you.
Man, I love doing it, and I miss you out here, but I'm loving the podcast and all the guests you've had on, and I don't know. Hopefully, I didn't blow it for you. People listen to it.
Can't wait to see you, brother. We'll train soon, and I love you.
Yes, sir.
All right, man.
Love you, brother.
Talk
Good to see you
later.